It is from the greatest dangers that the greatest glory is to be won. Thucydides, Book 1, Chapter 144. In 2023, Muclass was the site of the largest war games it had ever run. Spanning 7 weeks, 4 sessions, and countless hours of tactics, it shaped and scarred a map of the ancient Mediterranean and the lives of those involved. Friends would be made, alliances shattered, heroes forged. These are their stories. Rome went on an immediate charm offensive, sending ambassadors to all corners of the globe, seeking treaties and deals for the division of land. A tentative agreement was struck with Carthage, where Sicily was agreed to be neutral territory, and the Iberian Peninsula, as well as the islands of Corsica and Sardinia, were divided evenly. It had greater luck in Greece, where 5 years later, continued engagement produced a formal document outlining goals of peace, commerce, and friendship. The signing ceremony, witnessed by all other nations, became the first great symbol of diplomatic success in an unstable geopolitical world. The council seemed as though it could be a stabilizing force, especially with a 5 FFC resolution indicating clear rules of military engagement, with only Carthage abstaining. But fault lines soon emerged. Persia stood alone in its staunch anti-temple advocacy, pushing for increased taxation on religious bodies, while Greece led a strong coalition in support of them. It was the first harbinger of global tensions, ones which would only increase with Rome's attempt to rapidly push through a resolution disavowing historical sovereignty without allowing time for review of the legislation. These attacks, privately viewed by some ambassadors as a pretext for aggression on Carthage, led to Greece, despite their ironclad agreement with Rome, affronted by the lack of consultation from their ally, choosing to abstain from the vote, allowing an Egypto-Punic faction to tie the draft resolution up in committee and ultimately talk it to death. But these battles would not stay rhetorical for long. Between 5 and 10 FFC, Rome advanced its forces into Sardinia, something Carthage viewed as breaking the pact of half a decade earlier, prompting an immediate declaration of war in 10 FFC. In an address, Fleet Admiral Meg Chalice, seen here in happier times, roused the troops for battle, declaring her cause to be not only the cause of our people and the cause of our nation, but the cause of all people of goodwill wherever they may be, calling upon her people to hold fast to that faith echoing down the annals of our history, the faith that in the fullness of time, truth, goodness, and right will always prevail. It was a war that would drag on for some 10 years, with not a single major battle of note, a remarkable feat as legions and fleets skirted around each other, attacking civilian targets off the coasts of Africa, Italy, and Spain, but never directly engaging in open combat. Carthage moved swiftly to gain a stronghold in Saguntum, but with strong winds and navigational errors scuppering their plans of a mighty army capable of marching across Gaul, they were forced to rely on swift naval attacks from Sicily. Rome took advantage of this, using the Baleares as a forwarding position from which to raise a fleet capable of sailing on Carthage. Fearful for the safety of its capital city, the Carthaginians allied in the Council of 15 FFC with the voting bloc of Egypt and Greece to strongly condemn the sacking of capitals, forcing Rome to abide by the rules of war during their occupation of the city. Mass packages of humanitarian aid provided by other nations allowed the Carthaginians to rearm and regroup near Cirta, all the while readying their troops in Saguntum and Neapolis for a dual strike to break the back of Rome and take back Carthage in one fell swoop. But war was not an invention of the West. The East found itself mired in it too. A burgeoning Persia used its industrial prowess to build mighty defences, deemed unscalable by most of the ancient world. But Egypt, with its fast-moving strike forces, able to be anywhere in their territory in the blink of an eye, dared to try. They also built diplomatic coalitions, through means like a treaty with Greece in 10 FFC, providing a mutual defence clause against wars of aggression. But for the first 3 years of the war, from 12 to 15 FFC, no war was formally declared. Well aware of both sides' mutual defence clauses with other nations, the Council turns a blind eye to the matter until the two develop an agreement declaring the war to be of mutual intent. But the lack of formal documentation did not make the battles any less deadly. In a letter written to Rear Admiral William R.J. Thompson, asking for aid, Major General Daniel Chevo describes the horrors of the battle.
I went over the field, such a sight I never wish to see again. Every conceivable wound that can be thought of was there. There were so many wounded that it was impossible to attend to all of them, some of them laying 48 hours in a drenching rain. It is beyond the power of me to describe such a battlefield.
Indeed, the Council becomes a political football for these two great powers, with the Arms Treaty of 15 FFC seeing Carthage use its deciding vote between the Roman-Persian bloc and the Egypto-Grecian bloc to enforce disarmament upon Persia, much to Egypt's relief. It was Greece, however, which seemed to grow the most. Free from war and dealing with all parties in the Mediterranean in the pursuit of just peace, it was able to invest in arts and culture. Plays, architecture and fashion spread through the oceans and across the lands, with the proud city-states in Bithynia and Galatia agreeing to submit themselves to Greek rule simply on account of the cultural influence of their neighbours. A letter from Ambassador Hannah Lewis back home demonstrates the power Greek diplomats in Bithynia held.
The crowd shouted and screeched as if they would split the firmament, though while I was speaking you might have heard a pin drop. I think not that anyone could do justice to that scene. It would be necessary to see and hear it to understand it.
And so this was how it ended. Greece, the most prosperous power in the world, dominating not through war, but through peace and economic power. The powers of Persia and Egypt duking it out in the east, the former exploring to the north and to the south, while the Egyptian war machine made its move on Jerusalem. And a diminished Rome and Carthage still fighting for control, as each prepare to take the other's homelands in one fell swoop.